Thank you, Alejandro. Yes, we are indeed with Grandmaster Fabiano Caruana, one of the best chess players on the planet. Fabi, welcome back to St. Louis. Tell us a little bit about your last few months.
Yeah, I've been out of town for a while, so it's pretty much my third day back in St. Louis, and in time for this tournament. It's good to see that chess is coming back to over the board, and there's more and more events. And this is an incredibly strong tournament. Actually, I was surprised to see just how many really strong players there are.
Tell us a little bit about that. Back when you were 25, 2600, did you have this type of opportunities of closed events competing against the best chess players around your rating?
No.
Or where were those opportunities?
It was mostly open events that I played when I was around that level, even up to 2700. Mostly open tournaments. I played a lot of tournaments in Spain. I had like some closed tournaments. There was this, I think they still exist, this series of tournaments that went every month in Hungary called
the First
Saturday tournaments, right? They were closed events, but not nearly at this level. They were maybe between 23 to 2500 most players, so maybe average rating 2400. This level of tournaments, like average of 26, many players 2650, even close to 2700, is actually incredibly rare. Traditionally, you had those open tournaments and then the super tournaments.
Super elite events.
Yeah, which are 2750 plus, let's say. So this is actually a somewhat neglected area in chess. Players of this level, they're professionals, they're very strong, but they somewhat get overlooked in terms of opportunities of being able to play and improve, because these are the type of events which help these players improve their chess.
We are very happy to see the classics return to the St. Louis Chess Club. You were mentioning that there's a lot of talent in these two fields. Which player caught your eyes?
It's hard to say, because a lot of players I know pretty well. I've played a lot of them many times. Like a lot are quite established. Like, let's say Jeffrey is one of the top players in the United States. He's a very established player. And Savion was tied for first in the last U.S. Championship and didn't win in the playoff, but still he's incredibly strong too. Hans Niemann is a slightly newer name. I got a chance to see his games more recently. He's obviously very talented, and I suspect he'll at some point make that push to 2700, but he's not quite as established as some of the other guys. But yeah, there's a lot of
well, he was 2500 last year.
Yeah, so. He's moving super fast up the ranks. But yeah, there's a lot of very talented players. Some more up and coming, some who are a bit more established in the scene.
Well, since we have you in the studio, we're going to have to take advantage of that and use you. What game should we go to?
Well, the game you have up is actually pretty interesting. I don't know if that's a live position.
That is the live position. Actually, Rook F6 was played after. We can go forward a couple of moves. Let me bring it up just 1 second. Lost it somehow. Not this one. This one is over. Why can't I find it? I'm pulling a Yasser here.
That one is a very interesting one as well.
That one is interesting as well, but I'm missing the Hans Niemann game for some reason from my... You can pull it up, Cristian, for a second.
Absolutely, yes. So we do have this position right now on the board. I think Queen to E7 was played. By the way, it seems like maybe the only way to defend this position was to spot this ridiculous tactic with Rook to A7, and if you go Knight to B7, now I have this move Knight to F3.
Oh.
Rook to A7 is a really weird move, because it leaves D6 hanging. It's not even Knight B7, but it just leaves D6 hanging, which I guess Rook Knight D3 is such an important resource, because once Black's Queen gets to E3, he has so many checks. Yeah, or Rook F7, Queen E3, suddenly we're already looking at
sort of...
Yeah, maybe even Queen E6 here or something.
Queen E6, okay.
So it's... this is probably okay, but yeah, Rook A7 is a really surprising move.
So, actually, Rook A7 probably was missed by both players, because we did see Hans very confidently, very quickly play this move, Rook C F1, probably not spotting Rook A7. If that's the only defense, you can completely understand why he thought he was in the driver's seat. The move Queen E7, trying to solidify the entire game. It came down, but it's just not enough. Knight B7, Rook A6, Rook F6 on the board, and Ray down to 2.5 minutes for the remaining 7 moves. That's going to be a very tall order, but objectively, this position might just be completely lost.
Yeah, he might try to maybe, because he has to defend D6. Once that falls, it's all over. And if he plays, oh, he took on b4, but now knight d6.
Let's take a look. Knight takes d6.
Because it also threatens, well, the rook, the pawn f7, even somewhere queen e5 could be in it. Although you have to be careful there because then black's pawns in the endgame could get rolling.
So what if I just simply go rook to d8 now?
Rook to d8.
Here I think I do take on, wait, let's point out that if I take on e5, there's also the important fact that after the move king g7, this rook's actually under attack.
After rook to d8, yeah, this one is not what white wants. After rook d8, maybe knight f7, in fact. Because
knight f7 check.
Black should play knight takes f7.
Right.
Now I'll take with the rook.
Here?
Yeah, you probably want to trade queens, otherwise you'll get mated. So rook d5, rook e7, and you pick up b4, like rook d8 is forced. You pick up b4, you're just up 2 pawns, and rook f7 is coming.
Yeah,
so this might clean it up very comfortably.
That is resigns.
But there's likely also other ways to finish it off.
So let's see, if he goes knight takes d6, how does black defend at this point?
He might not, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Maybe rook takes d6 and just say, okay, I'm going to give you the exchange and potentially take on a3, and maybe I'll do something with those 2 connected passers.
This is probably the right way, but after b takes a3, rook d6, ba3, queen d4, you, well, your pawns are not moving so quickly.
So let's go. If
A2
I go
maybe?
a2, you go rook a6.
Yeah,
right?
probably just rook a6.
Yeah, this catches
I think white
this
keeps
pawn,
control
right?
here very, very well. There's still rook d8 and there's some mess, but you know, unless black is promoting that pawn, it's going to be winning for white.
Can try for some rook c2 business? No, probably too slow, right?
Rook c2, maybe, can I play rook f7? I don't want to.
Yeah, this is a bit of a disaster, right? That's all, Chirila. Let me just put this on the board. That here, I'm going to follow it up with rook a8. That's a back rank. No matter if you go to king g8 or queen g7, you're going to lose the game. Because
Well, actually, let's keep going. Queen to f8. Ah, you have queen to g5. Yeah.
Yeah,
here,
don't-
queen g5,
Queen g5
is
is
probably
game
the
over.
easiest.
Just don't take the queen immediately, then you might have
Yeah.
might have ruined it. Yeah,
Yes.
but this wins the queen.
And that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's game over.
How much time does Hans have?
Hans still has 6 minutes to figure out what's going on in the position, 6 minutes and 10 seconds. So he does have the time to think about things. And as we mentioned, it's not necessarily the only way to increase the advantage. I'm also wondering if you could just take back the pawn on b4. It's probably not the cleanest, but it does ask some...
So if you take on b4, my guess is that he just simply wants to go maybe rook a1, some sort of tactics like that.
Okay, one. Of course, using the fact that the rook is overloaded, defending the first rank, and the rook on f6. You know, I start looking at this, I think maybe I'm winning anyway, but why go into it, right?
It starts to get messy. I mean, maybe you can still play rook a1, queen f6, and knight d6. And then black has to play knight to f3 check, because there's a queen e5 tactics.
Yes.
So knight f3, king h1. And it's hard to say, because white's king is also potentially in a mating net, you know, after like rook c2. On the other hand, maybe white wins after rook a8. But yeah, it gets very tricky. This is how you...
This is how you don't win.
You met because knight e8, king g6, and the king, or even king h6, and the king has no more. White can't give any more checks to the king, and black actually wins this, I think.
That's checkmate.
That's difficult to stop checkmate. So yeah, this is how you potentially spoil winning positions.
You still have rook to a2, but you're
yeah,
probably going to get checkmated after
yeah,
rook
rook
to
a2,
c1.
rook. Well, your king on f2 is maybe safe.
Here, although even the move queen c6 looks...
Or queen c6, yeah.
Queen
Or
C6.
queen g5, it's hard to say, yeah. Queen g5 allows queen a6, so...
Queen c6 seems very potent.
Yeah, but we don't expect any of this. I think the moment you start to see that it gets messy, you just switch to the other variation. Remember that Hans doesn't have that much time himself. Now currently only at 4 minutes and 15 seconds. He does have to make a decision that will give him the cleanest way to win this game.
Well, he's quite a good blitz player. I think he sort of specializes in fast time controls because he's so... I've seen him play so much online chess, so he's probably not too worried about the lack of time here, but you never know. I mean, even the best players can panic when they're low on time and blunder. I mean, especially here, it's easy to blunder. Easy to miss some small tactic, and the entire evaluation reverses itself.
I think we're going to stay here for a little bit as it is the most exciting game and both players going down to the wire. Hans keeps burning time, certainly making his fans nervous. What is there else to think? Knight takes d6, 8 takes b4 seem like the only choices to me.
It feels like that is the critical line that he's calculating, just that
and he just took back. He actually
played it.
He just took back. He didn't play knight
Nope.
takes d6. We didn't really see the exact problem with knight takes d6. We thought it was winning. And after pawn takes b4, Ray, and he's a crafty player. I've had the terrible experience of playing Ray Robson when he's in time control, and it's just like he finds every resource to keep himself afloat. Doesn't matter that he's down to 30 seconds. And let's see if he finds the move
Speaking
rook
of
a1.
resources, Alejandro, we were mentioning the move rook to c1, but check this line out. Rook to c2.
Rook c2 immediately.
Now, the big threat is that if you take on d6 with the knight, I'm actually going to be able to take on f6 with the queen.
Very tricky.
Check
very,
that
very, very
checkmate
tricky.
out.
Let's show it on the board. We got check here. This is a back rank check except for the rook. But this knight f3 kicks out the king, and then I'll have a pleasant choice between rook takes f1 or rook takes h2 checkmate. That is not going to be good. Rook c1. Or rook c2.
Both of them
crafty
were.
move.
Rook to c1 and rook to c2. Both
We were
of
mentioning
them.
rook to a1.
He played rook to c2.
And he played rook c2. Oh man, I see rook c2 and I'm starting to get nervous.
So another question is, can white, if queen takes d4, then black will switch the idea and play, I think, rook to a2, because that's the second idea of rook c2. Even if the a1 square is covered, black still has this very dangerous looking. Like, let's say, maybe white still has rook 6 to f2, but...
Wait, do I have a...
No, there's a
Maybe
pin.
king to
Oh,
g8.
But
pin
queen
there.
to, queen to f6 is actually maybe nice here.
Oof, oof,
Oh.
That's a nice move.
That's a brilliant move. Let's just explain it to the viewers. Rook takes f6 cannot be played because check, check. The other rook will come with checkmate to g2. And if you take my rook, this comes crashing down. Knight f3 check. I'll take the queen with check on the next move as well. And yeah, this looks...
This is not, I mean,
Actually,
there's still
not
king
the end,
h1.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
King h1, knight...
But we're already talking about black trying to win rather than white trying to win.
Yes, absolutely. Especially, as always, with this terrible knight
Yeah.
on b7, this endgame looks more promising for black than for white after I take on d3. Yes.
So yeah, now we could see any result. They're both low on time.
And
Well,
they still have 6 moves to make. So
6 moves to make. It's not easy.
It's going to get tense.
Easy for white to lose this one as well.
Absolutely. So if not rook 6 f2, what else do we have in store here for white? We saw knight takes d6 loses to queen takes f6. I think that is pretty clear, right?
Well, there's rook takes d6.
Rook takes d6.
But in rook a2, it doesn't really solve this issue because rook d8, king g7 is, yeah, it's not leading anywhere.
Yeah.
White
As usual, if the knight could teleport to f5, but
Yeah.
this knight has been out of play for so long. All right, rook takes d6 doesn't quite work.
Well, one thing I can do is maybe just plug that a5 with the move knight to a5.
Oh.
Just not allow your rook to get to double up on the second rank.
Yeah, that's a nice move.
That is a very nice move. The knight from useless to hero, making sure that the rook doesn't penetrate either on a1 or a2.
But now there's no more threat. There's no more rook takes d6 coming. My knight on e5 is stable.
That's funny.
There's queen d4.
Queen d4 is a
Yeah,
threat,
Queen
right?
d4. So maybe I have to try to, and I think he's going for it.
I think, yeah, there's nothing else on that side of the board, right?
I don't think so.
I also don't see another option. Once you see the rook 6f2 might run into problems. Knight a5. Yeah, I think it has to be knight a5. in
And
this
he's down to
position.
his last minute.
It's also knight a5 is a sort of move which kind of negates the possibility that you lose because white seems relatively safe there. While if you allow the other rook into the attack with rook a2 or rook a1 potentially, then you're very much risking losing the game. So knight a5. And it also, besides queen e4, it also threatens queen b5, which is an important pawn as well.
Oh,
What?
but he's actually changed his mind. He was reaching for the knight, but he did go with the move rook 6f2. Will Ray, who is known on his chess.com puzzle sprees as Spicy Caterpillar, one of the best puzzle rush solvers in the world, will he spot the move queen f6?
No, it wasn't here. It was queen d4, rook a2, rook 6f2, queen f6.
We need the rooks doubled
Ah, we need the
first.
rooks
Yeah.
double first. Sorry, my
So
bad.
maybe
So he's
rook
actually playing
a2.
here before.
Maybe rook a2. Maybe that's a good question. What do you do after rook a2?
But then rook c2 and knight d6, I don't see the attack anymore.
Let's put that on the board
There's
here.
no more queen to
Takes,
f6.
takes, queen takes d6, and
And now there's queen e5 on tap, so
yeah, This does look pretty bad. And queen a8, knight
Maybe,
f5.
I mean, black can just take on f2. That looks the most reasonable option. Because then you'll get your other rook in potentially with check. White has to take with the rook.
And he took it. We see that exchange happening right now.
All right, rook a1 looks like a move, certainly.
Yeah, now it's so concrete.
How does this proceed? Rook a1 check for sure, right?
Okay,
I don't know
that's-
I
about
don't know for sure. King g2. Would really like to take knight d3 or knight g4, but they both run into queen.
Well, what if I
d4?
take on d3 first?
Oh, let's start with knight takes d3. You're
Right.
saying?
Yeah, what about rook f7 here? I was wondering.
That is the big question. Do I have enough checks to create any sort of danger for your king? So let's say check.
Yeah, king g2.
Check again with, oh, rook a2 doesn't work.
Because
Look.
the queen is defending.
Actually, maybe it does work.
Huh?
Maybe it does
Yeah,
work.
well, queen e4.
Rook
King
F-
h3. No, rook f3 runs into knight e1.
Knight
but-
e1. Let's put that out. Even this is not the end of the variation, right? You give this check. You'd like to block with the rook, but knight e1 check picks at least some material up. You
But
are
king to h3, I think,
but
finishes.
no
that.
checks,
this,
yeah.
this is actually surprisingly no checks. The queen defends e6, the rook defends f5, the knight doesn't have access to these squares, and that would be the end of the game.
So wait, instead of rook a2, black must have something. Better. So yeah, rook a1 check, king g2.
Robson down to his last 45 seconds.
Problem is you actually don't have many viable moves because, well, there's too many threats. Queen d4 and rook f8 potentially.
And by the way, I think he played the best move in the position. He played king to g8.
Ah, yeah.
Wow. I like this. Every time that queen takes d4, it never pins the knight. You cannot take on d4, of course, right now because queen takes b7 is on tap. So
So you have to lose a tempo with knight a5.
But this threatens knight d3 now. That's why he
Yeah.
defended both d4 and, well, defended f7 and indirectly defended d4 because it's no longer checked. So knight a5 allows knight d3, and black is, yeah, I don't know what the valuation is, but it suddenly looks a lot safer. Black can even just move the knight back to e5 next, and
well, I
and-
even start thinking of this move. Of course,
yeah, I
so
was thinking
queen
like
takes
rook
b5,
c2.
but yeah.
Rook c2 is kind of,
Or maybe
Natural.
knight c6, right?
and then knight e5. I thought
95 just to
was-
defend. Here on c6 doesn't allow the knight in.
Because, okay, you can take b5, but then you have to deal with that, potentially that passed d pawn. Maybe not immediately, but maybe queen to a7 and then d3 with check. And it's very double-edged.
It's still a 3-result game here.
Yeah, for sure. White is risking as well.
So what if we go maybe knight c6 after knight takes d3? So knight to a5, knight takes d3, knight c6.
And if take on f2, black is
Probably
up a
just a
pawn,
draw.
yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a riskless position. I don't know
Yeah.
how often I
Queen-
win it, but I think I win
No,
it.
maybe queen g5 even.
Oh, queen e5.
Oh, queen g5 much stronger. Yeah, the same idea, defend the pawn on b5, but
And-
instead of defending the pawn passively with queen e5, you have this queen e3, massive threat.
Yeah,
This
it's
looks
either
lost.
a draw or black
Black is
presses
playing
for a
for two
win.
results.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see what happened. Knight a5 on the board. Indeed, we are expecting the move knight takes d3. We don't really see anything wrong with it, and a pawn is a pawn. It's a pretty good pawn, too.
Yeah, it's an automatic move, I think.
Right, and it's been played. Knight takes d3. Question is, what does Hans have planned here?
Is queen to b5 a move, or?
Queen b5 might be a move.
I mean, the thing is that, yeah, black is no longer worse for sure after knight f2, queen a6, but is he better? Is hard to say. It might be kind of drawish eventually.
knight
Because
takes-
white has queen c8, queen g, all sorts of checks.
Mhm.
And, okay, white's king is weak, but so is black's.
Yeah, queen b5 might be interesting. You actually played your first instinct of the move, knight takes d3, rook c2, bringing the rook into the game. It doesn't feel like it has any decisive threats right now, but it is very logical to try to harass this king with the move rook c8.
So the idea being that if you take on b4, I'm just simply going to pick up all your pieces after rook to c8.
But you can
queen
do this
d4.
actually, because you have queen e5,
Okay.
and then queen a1.
Queen a1.
And then the question is, which king is weaker? Because king g2, rook a5. And if queen d6, there's rook a2 and queen f1, and
It feels
Might
like
get checkmated.
it feels like black gets here faster.
it's a bit difficult to say because queen
Check.
f1, king g4. But yeah, queen
h5.
e2. Yeah, it feels like it should be checkmate.
h5 you go king g5.
No, but then
No,
f6.
f6, right? This is
yeah.
just checkmate here. f6, king takes. You have to go to the h file. and then
Or
this
Queen
actually,
Queen
H3.
F3. Or well, Queen H3 is made in one.
Queen H3, yeah.
whatever.
That's
I mean,
If you go king to H4, now you go
Rook
takes
H2, yes.
Yeah.
all right, so Rook C2 on the board. What is the time situation right now? I see 6 seconds for Ray Robson.
And he played knight e5. He did not take the pawn on b4.
All right, this is, I think, a more practical approach when you're running out of time.
Also because knight b4 allowed rook c8 and queen b5. And black's pieces are extremely... The knight on e5 is just perfect. The knight on b4...
I love this knight. I love this knight. And look at that expression. Rook c8 check. Finally, an easy move here for Ray Robson. King g7 played immediately. And I think you have to take this pawn, right? I don't see...
or queen b5. It's...
He took it.
He took on d4, right? Taking advantage of
but
the
queen
renewed
b5,
pin.
you know, you also have to be worried that you just black sacks that rook, like queen g5, and just mates.
Or
without,
queen g5,
without the
right?
rook, right?
Yeah.
So taking on d4, at least you pin the knight. You're kind of happy about that.
So let's unpin the knight with queen f6.
Yeah, and maybe queen f2.
Although even here I
But
can
now I can
claim,
just simply take and go knight d3.
right?
and
That's
pick
an
up-
extra
yeah,
pawn,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, that's
the pawn on
actually
d3.
probably a winning endgame.
Right. Picks up that one. That's kind of ugly.
So yeah, maybe king g2 after queen f6.
Really?
Yeah, at least like to give a check, you have to repin your knight with black. So king g1.
But you're...
But yeah, it's
so king h3, queen g4 just loses the rook.
yeah.
Important to point that out.
Yeah.
But this looks so risky for white.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the move king g2. But maybe you have to do it, right? What else
I
can you
think
do here?
You have like queen c3. You have a bunch of moves, but none of them look super appealing.
Queen f6 was played.
Yeah, so we're going to find out. I think this is the last...
Yes, they made time control.
They made time control,
Ray
right?
Robson is out. He is going to the restroom, splash some water into on his face. Just take a breather.
Wow, what a time scramble we had, but it did seem like both players avoiding the riskier situations. I can imagine why, as some of them just ended up absolutely lost for both sides. But here, after the move queen d4, queen f6, instinctively I like black. It just feels that the knight on a5 is so far away from the action. I understand that it's blocking my own rook, but if I can ever get it into the game, that's just going to be all she wrote. The knight on e5 is such a monster.
Yeah, this is fully a 2-result game. Queen c3, queen e3. Yeah, white is probably not losing or anything yet, but it could become losing at some point.
Well, we've dedicated enough time to this game. They have reached time control, of course, after this event. Hans will probably take a long time to consider his options, make sure that he defends appropriately. Cristian, do you have any updates, any games that you want to see that we haven't really been able to look at?
Well, first of all, I think it's also time to release our prisoner, Fabiano. Thank you, Fabiano, for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again in the studio.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Fabi. And